What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Roman's Creative Academy. If you don't know who Roman is, that is our doggy, but I am Jay.
And I'm Mike. And today, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking about a strategy that we couple with buying real estate that has not only allowed us to scale faster than normal, but allows most real estate investors that you see to scale just as fast. So in the industry, you hear a lot of people talking about, oh, I just did a no money down deal, right? But what do they mean by a no money down deal? Of course, in the world of creative financing, there is such thing as a no money down deal, but to the seller. There's always going to be fees associated with buying a home, whether it's your transfer tax, title insurance, you're going to need to pay closing costs, right? Even if you have nothing out of pocket anywhere else, right? So let's think about that. That is still money out of pocket. That is not a no money down deal. But where are people buying and how are they buying with literally $0 out of their pocket? We literally got paid to buy our last house. Like, we got a check given to us for the last purchase of our property. And how do we do that, and how do others do that?
Yeah, and that's by using other people's money, right? OPM.
Or what you hear commonly used as private money lenders, things along that nature.
So, in this episode, we are going to talk about where creative financing meets private money.
Yep. And we're going to give you guys a few different things. So just a little bit of an intro to how to get private money, what private money is, some of those things, right? Some examples of houses that we've bought using private money, and some actionable steps so you guys can go out and start to make those necessary steps afterwards, right? So first things first, private money or private money lenders, all that is stating that you are going to be borrowing cash from an individual. You're not going to be borrowing cash from a bank or what people call a hard money lender. A hard money lender is brokered money, meaning that they are a company you're borrowing money from, and they are going and borrowing money from individuals to relend to you. You are going right to the source with private money. It literally could be your mom, your brother, your dad, your neighbor, anybody. Anybody can lend you cash, and that's what a private money lender is.
Yep.
Now, moving on, in terms of like paperwork and everything, you always want to consult with your attorney. Every state is different, right? And how they want to structure it. And you'll know for short, so there's two types of private money lenders. There's private money lenders who do short-term lending. And then there's private money lenders. This is if you have a really good track record and you have a good relationship with that private money lender that may want to go a little bit longer than, say, 12 months, which is typically a short-term lender's term for private money. The shorter the term, the higher the interest rate.
Yep, and then I just want to say that a lot of people ask us, like, what is the standard? What standard is there out there when lending money out? And honestly, there is no standard. You can shop around. Like, when you shop around for a shirt, it's cheaper at this store than it is at that store. Then you get better rates with this private money lender than you get with this other private money lender, right? Because one may lend you at, say, 9% while the other's looking for 12. It's what works for them. So it really just depends. And paperwork wise, like Mike said, state has some influence in that, but also what the private money lender requires, right? Because they can require liens to put against the house. Others feel more comfortable if they don't put a lien on the house. So it just really depends on that relationship that you create with that private money lender.
Yep, and it's the same thing with the terms. So to get into some examples, because examples are always my favorite, and I'm sure that they are for you too, so you could see real life, things that went down. We're going to give you two properties that we bought with private money. We bought them both with creative financing, specifically on a mirror wrap, both of these properties.
Also known as a subject to transaction.
Correct. Now, And there's a little bit of a difference between those two, but we'll get into that on a different episode. But for the first property we bought, we coupled subject to or mirror wrap with private money. Reason being is the seller on this deal needed $8,000 to walk away with because he had to put first, last, and security on a rental and get a moving truck. And that's what it was going to require for him to leave, and he didn't have it. So we said, sure, no problem. Then we had to factor in, okay, well, what are we going to do with this property? We knew that we wanted to turn this property into a rent to own once we closed on it. You're going to have holding costs and you're going to have closing costs. So we factored into our total amount into the deal out of pocket that we were going to have $8,000 to the seller. We got estimated closing costs from the title company for about $4,500 and 3 months of holding costs because that's when you're looking for your tenant buyer, and that's around $3,000 because our PITI is around $1,000 a month, right? So if you do the math, that's somewhere around 15 grand, give or take, right? And what we did was we said, well, do we have 15,000 to spend? Yes. Is that going to slow us down for our next property? Oh yeah, 100%. So we said, well, what if we just borrowed the money for the 15 grand from somebody else, and we already knew how we were going to repay them, which is with a down payment from a tenant buyer, right? So what we did was we went out and we had a really strong deal at hand, and we showed how it cash flowed, what it looked like on paper, and we just went out to our network for people that we found through networking events and things of that nature.
And the biggest question that private money lenders is asked is, how are you going to repay me? So that's one of the biggest things, is just showing those numbers of, hey, we're going to repay you with that down payment.
Exactly. And they're like, well, what is your down payment? And we told them, well, it's going to be 10% and it should be $20,000 plus. So we'll give you your money plus your interest, and then the rest we'll keep for us. So we found a private money lender relatively easy. They wired in. So the money at closing that was needed was about $12,000. Remember, we needed 3 months of holding costs. So they wired in $15,000 to the title company, and then the title company wired me and Jay $3,000 and change on the day of closing. So we got paid that day to buy a house, right? Now, our monthly payments to the private lender plus our PITI we were paying every month, and we found a tenant buyer in about 3 months' time.
Side note, people are probably going to ask, well, what about renovations? The house was completely redone. It was brand new. We didn't have to do anything to it.
We didn't even sweep it. We just put the key, turned the lock, opened it, great, turned the lights on, and started showing it. We found a tenant buyer who actually gave us $15,000 down, which pretty much paid for everything. I think we were out of pocket $500 because of some interest, right? And we made that back with 1 month's cash flow. So when people talk about no money out of pocket or no money down deals, this is what they mean. They mean that you are using someone else's cash to buy the house, but what's really important is not just finding a deal and borrowing somebody's money, but knowing how you're going to repay them. Because time and time again, we've seen in the market that people borrow money and have no plans on how to actually get them paid back. And then that term comes due and they're screwed.
So, Mike, I want to touch upon this because for me, I would ask, like, what's considered a short term and what's considered a long term for private money lenders? So, what's average cutoff, right?
Yeah. So for a short-term loan for private money, or a normal what they call bridge loan or whatever, if you've heard of that, it's typically 12 months, right? So you have 12 months with that money, and that's what typically flippers use, or we need transactional funding. That's what we're doing with our deals when we buy them creatively and sell them rent to own. We're using their money for the transaction, and once we recoup it with a down payment, they get paid off and go away, right? Now, long term, it doesn't mean that 1 year and 1 month is a long-term loan, but typically, from when I've talked to other private money lenders, they don't want more than a year. So anything year and a half, 2 years, 3, 4, 5. I mean, if you can get something like that, then that is definitely considered a long-term loan, and you definitely should treat that private money lender with crazy respect because they are a gem to you. That means you can really move fast, right? And really buy up some crazy deals without worrying about at the end of the 12 months you got to pay them off with what money, right? You have to think about that.
Yeah.
So,
And I also want to bring up the fact that a lot of people don't use also, you know, private money lenders who utilize their credit, because there are people out there that will pull credit cards and lend you the money via cash, and then you have to repay them back. Typically those are short term because you get those, 12, 15, 16 months 0%, and that makes it worthwhile to them. So it's also getting a little bit creative with the lenders that you find too. So I just wanted to throw that out there. But talk a little bit about our long-term deal that we did.
absolutely. So this house that we're sitting in now, we coupled with, like we said, a private money and a mirror wrap or sub two, right? And this is cool because we created a good relationship with our private lender on the first deal. So when we brought them, or on not on the first deal, but on that last deal that we talked about, right? And when we brought them this one, the terms were going to be different. And what we were looking for was something totally different than what we did on the first go around with them, because we were not planning on buying a property to then do rent to own and pay them off immediately. We were buying this house to actually live in it, right? So we needed a long-term private money lender on this one because at the end of 12 months, we're not going to repay them back X amount. So we went to them and we sat them down and we said, look, we have this great deal. It has a ton of equity. If we ever needed to rent it, it would cash flow at least $1,000 a month net as a rent to own, right? There's many different exit strategies that we can do in the case something ever went wrong. So you are protected outside of the fact of all the legal paperwork that goes into play. So what we were looking for was a 5-year term, so our payments weren't astronomically high on this private money loan, because this house cost a lot more than we would normally do, because it needed renovations, the seller needed money, and there was arrears, meaning that there was back to mortgage payments and it was going to foreclosure, right? So we told them we need $35,000 all in to close on this house. Me and Jay weren't shelling it out. If anything, we were going to buy it and then flip it real quick. But we weren't going to shell out that much and throw it out on the street, right? So we said, look, we asked them what kind of interest they wanted. Because we created such a good relationship with them, they were willing to give us better than market rates for private money with a 5-year term. So right now, we have monthly payments that not only go to the bank, but also go to the private lender, and there is no balloon payment. At the end of the 5 years, the loan is paid off. So that's how you need to structure your deals, because you need to protect these private money lenders' money. At the end of the 5 years, what happens if there was a balloon? How are we going to pay them off besides pulling cash from our bank account, which just defeated the whole point, right, of everything that we just did? So those are two ways that we've used private money, right? But they both have separate exit strategies. This wasn't even really an exit strategy. This was going to be our house to live in. The other one had an exit strategy, which was rent to own, which was an immediate payback.
So I guess moving forward, the biggest question I bet you guys have for us is, Mike, Jay, what actionable steps can I take to better prepare myself for when I find that deal? Mike, do you want to explain?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're new or not new, but maybe you've never used private money before, right? The best thing that you can do is come with proof of concept, but also come to a private lender with a deal, right? So I'll give you an example. One of our students right now, they locked a deal up with Creative Finance, and it's going to be a wraparound mortgage. And she decided that she wants to keep this deal, but it's $10,000 to close on it, between a very small amount of money to the seller and closing costs. Closing costs happen to be a lot on this one. So with that being said, she was like, well, what am I going to do, Mike J? I don't have the money to close on it, but I want it. So we said, well, you have a really good deal on paper. You have a strong network because this student of ours is very big with going to meetups and local groups. And she has a lot of friends who are in the same business. And she's built that trust in those friendships with these other investors. So she showed the deal to a few people that she knows, and she broke it down for them on paper, right? So first she went out and she found a creative deal. If you go to one of our prior episodes, you will go see exactly how to do that. Two is put that deal together on paper and write it up and lock it up. Once it's locked up under contract, you have time because of due diligence, right? And now you're going to go and find your private lender. If it's a good deal, you'll find the money. If it's a bad deal, you won't. And that's how you'll know. She had a great deal. Within one day, she had a private money lender who was willing to give her renovation costs, holding costs, down payment money to the seller, and closing costs. She's truly getting paid to buy this house. And then, how is she going to repay them? She's going to turn around and find a rent-owned tenant buyer, right? And she knows she can get a $20,000 down payment on this house, which is going to repay everything back to the lender. So she truly got a house for free.
And I want to say it wasn't just one private money lender that came out of the woodworks for her. She also has backups. So it's also good to have backups.
Correct.
Just in case, right?
Correct.
So basically start off by finding that creative deal, then presenting it out to people, and you will find someone if that deal is good.
Yep. So right now, if you guys are looking to learn how to use other people's money the right way, not the wrong way, and couple it with creative financing and the proper exit strategies, we want you guys to go to romanscreativeacademy.com, and up at the top, there's a button that says Apply to Work One-on-One with Us. Click it and fill out the application. And if we find that it come through, we'll set up a call and we'll talk about next steps on how we can teach you how to do this as well.
If you have any other questions for us, if this sparked anything, leave them in the comments or submit that at www.romanscreativeacademy.com/ask.
And always remember, guys, if you like this video, like, comment, and subscribe. And we'll see you on the next one.
See you guys.